don't wear hats.
It would make you taller.
Height's never been an issue for me.
That's true.
It's been a while. Didn't get enough last week.
I was really hoping to get this thing started before Shuckley walked in like that. I told you she was going to challenge me during Movember, and that's how she's going to do it right there.
Oh, I got you wiped out.
All right, well, as we welcome our CSAC staff down here, I bet they've never seen a board dressed like this. But that being said, we will convene the meeting of the Tulare County Board of Supervisors at this time. We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. We will be led today by Supervisor Shuckley.
Please join me in saluting our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, we will get started with Board of Supervisors matters, and I will go to the supervisor who's always prepared, Supervisor Workley.
Funny you should say that right off about my calendar, so I have no idea what I did yesterday, much less a week ago.
Not this morning.
I guess I would just say that we did have a meeting recently up in Fresno to talk strategy about how to augment our application before the Water Commission, and I think it was a productive meeting. We feel like we have a pretty strong basis on which we can augment that information that the Water Commission rejected. It's very important for us to get that. It counts for 15 points in the final scoring process. So that was a strategic meeting, and we'll be moving forward from there. I think that's all I have for today. Thank
All
you.
right, great. Supervisor Crocker.
I just noticed our HR director.
Bravo.
I'm not sure what I'm seeing.
It's a legume. Last week, Supervisor Ennis, I was really thrown off by that. Supervisor Ennis and I went to Washington on behalf of TCAG, and I thought we had a very productive round of meetings. It was jam-packed. The average amount of sleep we had was minimal, I think, just because of air flight schedules and getting through security and everything. But we were able to meet with staff from the White House and the Eisenhower building, which I think was very productive. And there's talks about the White House trying to assemble a local elected officials forum in Washington for the state of California in particular. Soon, rather. I think they were trying to shoot for the end of the month or early next month, or December, that is. Early December, late November. And they were doing that with Indiana this past week, and they've done several other states where they've brought in local leaders and tried to bring in individuals, liaisons from the various agencies and departments through the federal government. So if there were any issues in particular, whether it was with the Bureau of Reclamation or with some other group, then you could try and work out some of those issues, have some contacts with individuals. And I thought that would be very beneficial if the timing allowed for it. We had the opportunity to meet with Senator Kamala Harris's staff, which I think was a productive first step. I know that it's been a struggle to meet with her office in the past, but that seemed to be fairly receptive, and I think that it's baby steps, right? With any new elected officials, it's building a relationship, building a rapport. So down the road, then we can have those open lines of communication. I'll leave the rest of it, but I think the main points we were focusing on were farm to market routes and trying to create a national program, or at least float the idea of a national program as far as what we've already established with Avenue 280 and 144 here locally. The idea of getting a regional transportation plan going from a 4-year cycle to a 10-year cycle, and which means for us that saves us it costs about $1 million per plan. And so in a 10-year process, it's about $1.5 million in savings or so that we can utilize for other active transportation planning, transit planning that's required, and that our communities are helping with complete streets, and that would be a big benefit that we could utilize those planning dollars elsewhere. And then just 99 goods movement. I mean, that was a huge emphasis, and we have a great application in for a Tiger grant, an infra grant, and we're hoping that we got some great feedback from the Department of Transportation as far as some tweaks to our infra grant that we can do to possibly get us some more dollars and help out with speeding up the expansion of 99. So I think I will leave it with that. And then this week, I think many of us are attending the San Joaquin Valley Regional Association of Counties in Mariposa County.
All right, I will go ahead and make the motion that I do think that should the president convene a local elected task force in Washington, D.C., that Supervisor Ennis be the representative for Tulare County. Your next supervisor for Board of Supervisors matters.
As long as I don't have to go back to D.C. this year, I'm fine.
Well, you're the one I just said you're going.
I didn't hear you.
That's what I said.
Well, anyway, are you turning it now over to me, Mr. Chairman?
It's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Well, Kyler covered it all, so now, no. We did meet with USDA, which I thought was a good meeting, and, they were come-on around about grants and what they could do. And Mr. Smalley said, well, how about if we just put up $25 million, would you match it? Boy, and their old ears perked up, and they said, well, hey, boy, we've never heard that before. I said, well, we're not looking for a handout. We're looking for somebody to partner with on roads. So I think we got their attention on that. So that was a good meeting. And all the other meetings were, and of course, pushing Highway 99. Like you said, that was big and farm to market. Friday night, after going to the conference we're going to, I've got the Chamber of Commerce Awards in Porterville Friday night out at Knuckles Ranch, so I'll be attending that. Next week I won't be here. I'll be in Sacramento meeting with CTC, really just to more or less thank them for the $83 million that we're going to get to take 99 from Tagish Ranch to Tulare. So that was good news. That's real good news. So we just keep inching away at it. And we also got the money to do the design through Tulare. So we're moving on down. Hopefully we'll get down to Tipton one of these days and maybe link this 6 lanes of highway all the way through our county. That's what we're really looking for. And of course, by the time we get there, it'll probably be time to go to 8 lanes. So, it's a constant battle. But anything we can do to improve the Highway 99 corridor helps everybody. So that's a good thing about that. So that's about all I have. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Shuckley.
I just want to let you know that, being of Armenian descent, I have an uncle that looks just like this. Actually, okay, it's my aunt. It's my aunt, but we call her uncle. Okay, so with that, bada bing, bada boom. Yes, last Wednesday we had.
That was good, Amy.
Thank you, Mike.
That was good.
Oh, there's more where that came from, buddy.
I know there is.
Last Wednesday, we had an overwhelmingly successful homeless summit at the Wyndham. We had over 200 people there, and let me tell you, Jason and his staff put on a first-class summit. We had presenters from Albuquerque, New Mexico, talking about some of the things that the city has done there with work programs and housing. We had folks from Yuba County talking about one of their housing programs. Our keynote speaker gave some very good information, and I've only heard good things and received a lot of positive comments about that. So I really feel energized and a renewed motivation going forward with working on our homeless issue. City of Visalia had quite a few people there, the city of Porterville. So we're all, with our homeless task force, we're all getting on the same page and starting to work together on working on this. So it's not going to be an easy thing, but baby steps. So thank you for that, Jason and your crew. And then on Saturday, we had Make a Difference Day at Mooney's Grove Park. Neil was there with, finally brought the auger out. We had like 100 shovels, and the first hole into that hard pan, right, Chief? Chief Norman was there. He's still sore. Yeah, it's not workers' comp, Chief, so relax. You were off duty. It was a volunteer thing. But he was there with one of his battalion chiefs, John, and some folks from General Services, Brooke and Mila. So we had a great time. We planted over 90 trees throughout Mooney's Grove Park, some Chinese pistachios that are going to throw out some beautiful color in the future. We planted some oak trees and some peach or nectarine, Neil? Peach trees. Yeah, so we'll have some fruit up out there soon.
If the stray cats don't eat it.
Well, no, they won't. Well, the ones that are in here. We had folks working on the museum. As we know, there was some vandalism in there last month, so we had some volunteers helping to clean up and polishing all that, and we had some folks painting arbors. And the other nice thing, I drove throughout the park throughout the day, and we had so many users in the park. There was a fraternity using it, playing some games, some beer pong. I went back and played after we were done. There was a family reunion going on. There was a car show.
You joined in that too?
What's that?
Did you join the family?
I didn't join the family reunion, no. But and then they were setting up at the pillars there for a wedding that afternoon. So great things happening. It was a beautiful day, and Mooney's Grove is looking really good, and I think the community is noticing that. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right, it was actually really hot this weekend, too. I was at the pumpkin patch. I ran into the sheriff, and, man, it was brutal. We were both sweating bullets. I mean, he was wearing Wranglers and boots, and I was in shorts, and I was still sweating. But, yeah. Anyways, so, thanks for that valuable information. So tomorrow kicks off a great event that we look forward to every year, and now I'm excited to have a new contestant on my Board of Supervisors with me. Tomorrow kicks off the Movember Challenge. This is an opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to encourage all of our employees to join in a fight and an effort to spread awareness about men's health issues. And this is particularly focused on prostate cancer and testicular cancer and men's health, also involving mental health. And this month follows Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is typically focused on women. So it's a great opportunity for men to focus on men's health issues, and I will be participating. And notice, everyone, I'm starting the month with a very clean face. And you will see me on November 30th, and my face won't look too different because I don't grow facial hair. I won't grow facial hair like
It looked like a
Supervisor Shucklin's aunt that she talked about. I mean, she said it, not me.
I did.
She said it. So that being said, we will now, I'm going to finish up with my matters. This Saturday evening is the Tulare County Farm Bureau Young Farmers and Ranchers fundraiser casino night. That always is a great event and very well attended and helps raise money for the young farmers and ranchers. That will be at the International Agri Center at 6 o'clock. And then this week we also have the San Joaquin Valley Association of California Counties, and I will be attending that event, and that's always great, and really appreciate the effort to bring together valley counties that are like-minded and face very similar issues. So that's always a very productive event. Now we are going to continue on with our meeting agenda, and I'm going to go out of order here just because I like making Paul Yoder wait a little bit. We're going to take up item 3 before item 2. And item 3 is a presentation of the 2017 CSAC Challenge Award to Tulare County, showing innovation in the area of government finance, administration, and technology for the development of the project Foxtrot Fire App by the Tulare County Information Technology and Tulare County Fire Department. Grant.
That's a whole lot there.
It is. Hey, you worked with my staff to make that sentence, and wait till you see some of our later agenda items.
Our goal is to have a tongue twister in there for all of us. Good morning. Really thrilled to be here this morning for really to celebrate innovation and the great work that's occurring here in Tulare County. I'm Graham Knaus. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the California State Association of Counties, and we have the great fortune to represent you and every other county in the state, in Sacramento and also in D.C. And our charge really is about ensuring, at core, it's about advocacy and ensuring that your interests are protected, that you have the right tools, the right flexibility, the right revenue to carry out your community priorities and also those that are delivered to you by the state and federal government. And so we do that each day and throughout the year. And I want to highlight a couple of issues, particularly as we think about what's occurred over the course of this last year, because this has been a significant year, and you'll hear more about that from Mr. Yoder when he comes up. But there were two major efforts this year, one dealing with contracting out in counties, AB 1250, that you know well, that Dorothy was our lead on. And that bill would have removed your local flexibility, your local authority to ensure that you have the best service delivery partner in meeting your community priorities. And so I'm pleased to report that was successfully held. Much like most issues in Sacramento, that doesn't mean it permanently goes away, but it's definitely a success for this year. And also in in-home supportive services, where we began January with what would have been a $600 million cost shift to counties collectively. That would have been millions of dollars here in Tulare. And we end with a plan that allows 2 years of a reprieve. And so it's reasonable for the next 2 years. And then we will be right back at it to ensure that from a long-term perspective, that programs that are transitioned to counties to deliver on behalf of the state or federal government are structured in a way that allows you to meet your other priorities in addition to carrying out those responsibilities. So we were pleased to work successfully on those two issues and really partner with the broader lobbying pool that includes Mr. Yoder, who works very closely with us on a number of different issues. One of the other things that we do at CSAC is communications, and that's in large part what's driven us here today in terms of looking for innovation, best practices, and sharing that across the state so that you don't always have to reinvent the wheel, but rather learn from each other and others to learn from you in terms of what's occurring, because there's outstanding service delivery that's occurring in every single county in the state, and we want to make sure that that is an available resource for counties as they're thinking about how best to deliver services. At CSAC, we also have a finance corporation, which really is a partner on a number of different fronts. We have the U.S. Communities Purchasing Program, which is really about bulk product and services purchasing that allows you and other counties to leverage with each other to ensure that you're getting the best deal for your local taxpayers. We also have an infrastructure financing program through the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, which funds a number of public benefit infrastructure projects here in Tulare and in other counties. So we're pleased to be a partner with you on that. One other thing that I would note in terms about what we do is through our California Counties Foundation, which houses our CSAC Institute that Supervisor Sheklian knows well, we offer leadership and policy development to supervisors, your CAO, and senior staff. And we're now doing that in 5 different locations, including just a wee bit up the road in Merced. The concept is that we have a rotating satellite model, and so I'm thrilled to have one that's in the valley now. Merced will be wrapping up its time over the course of this year, and that could be an opportunity for Tulare to have that on site. It's the premier national leadership and policy development for county officials. So that's a potential opportunity for you, and we'll talk more about that in the future. So what we really get excited about, or at least what I really get excited about in terms of coming here today, is about our Challenge Award program. We've had it in place since the mid-'90s, and it's really about seeking out the most innovative ways of doing business across the service spectrum. This year, we had 288 entries across the 58 counties. That's the highest we've ever had. And I'm pleased that of the 16 challenge awards, that's the highest level honor. One of those is for right here in Tulare County, and that is the Project Foxtrot Fire app. And I'm going to let Dorothy talk about some of the great detail related to that and how it is innovative and warranting of the award. And so, Dorothy.
Good morning, Dorothy Johnson with CSAC. It really is a privilege to be here today, and we're honored to present Tulare County with the Challenge Award for the project. It is a tongue twister. Foxtrot Fire app, excuse me. And unfortunately, we are all too familiar with the devastation that fires can cause for our county residents, as we've seen just this month across our state. And so it's fitting to be spotlighting an innovative program that will assist firefighters in doing their jobs to save lives and protect property. So the Foxtrot Fire app allows the Tulare County Fire Department to access a centralized database of geographical information. And previously, we understand, this data was collected by individual site visits and then recorded by hand on notebooks. But today, firefighters can use the app that relies on GIS to augment this existing data. With current data, personnel can access vital information en route to a call and better plan for emergency response. They can now easily coordinate emergency planning and also assess types of vehicle, staff needed, and other equipment. Also, impressively, it allows for more than 4,000 Tulare County homes to be remotely evaluated for fire protection and prevention status, bringing a whole new level of public safety to the area. And by using existing data rather than individual site trips, we learned that the app has saved Tulare County more than 1,000 work hours, as well as financial savings, since costly server upgrades were not needed to complete this project. So the app is a perfect example of how local government can use innovation and collaboration between departments to provide safety and effective program delivery to all of your county residents. It also shows, again, what happens when county departments work together. So we are proud to present this award to the County of Tulare Board of Supervisors. And we also want to recognize Tulare County Information and Communications Technology Department Director Peggy Yates, staff members Matt Sanders and Mark Clark, as well as Chief of Tulare County EMS Division Jeff McLaughlin, and Kevin Regi, Tulare County 2nd Battalion Chief. So CSAC is proud to honor Tulare County with this challenge award today. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to invite the folks up who Dorothy just mentioned. If the board wants to join us down here, Mr. Spada as well. Thank you. How you doing, man? Thank you.
Dorothy. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you. Such a pleasure.
On the end and then squeeze in. And then Mr. Spada, come on out a little bit. And here we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. We're not done. Hold on. Perfect. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's actually our nice HR.
Mr. Chairman, before Graham and Dorothy take off, I just wanted to say, as the county's representative on the board of directors and the executive committee, I can't say enough good things about CSAC and their performances last year. You're going to hear some more of us from our lobbyists, I know, but this has been a very, very trying year of dealing with the state legislature, and I can tell you our CSAC staff was just absolutely superb in the results that we got and the effort that was made, the strategy that was employed, and just very, very proud of the work that they do. And these two individuals in particular have been right up front. So thank you for being here today, for honoring us, but we want to honor you for the good work that you're doing in Sacramento, and thank you very much.
And I'd like to just add one thing, Graham. You mentioned about the Institute, and we just got off the phone yesterday with Chastity. We set up some dates after the annual conference for her and Bill or whoever to come down and talk more about that and take a look at some potential facilities for us to have some Institute classes here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming down and all your hard work on our behalf up in Sacramento. Have a great day and safe travels back. All right, we will now move on to item number 3 on our agenda, and it's item 2, but taken up as item 3. My apologies. A presentation given by Paul Yoder from Shaw Yoder and Antwi Inc. regarding an update on state legislation. You had not too much to talk about, right? Being in the state of California, representing that legislation.
Should only take about 30 seconds.
Okay, good.
Good. Trick or treat. Larry Board of Supervisors.
You got money for us or something?
Worst treat ever. I know everybody loves a good PowerPoint presentation, right? But it's only about 8 slides, so I just thought it was a good way to do things today, and we got it seasonally themed there. Before I start, I do want to actually give my own kudos to CSAC, if that's okay. I've seen a lot of different iterations of the organization in my 27 years of lobbying for counties. This is one of the highest functioning iterations ever that I've seen, and they really are doing a great job for counties.
Paul,
Would you move that microphone closer?
Yes.
And next
You can actually raise the podium. There's a switch down
Okay,
there.
well, I'll just go like this. Just to recap, CSAC's great. In case anybody couldn't hear that. So, going to look back here a little bit, starting with the 17-18 state budget. As Graham and Dorothy mentioned, the biggest element for counties is, and unfortunately will be the in-home supportive services shift proposed by the governor. We did a very good job working together this year to lessen the impact of Tulare County. It was going to be over a couple $1 million. We got it down to a couple $100,000. But as noted there in the slide, year 3 of the governor's proposal really is still the huge concern. It doesn't work. We have to fix it. And CSAC is going to, I think, be making efforts to educate all the candidates for governor because we are going to have a new governor dealing with year 3 of the IHSS shift unless something changes next year. Just want to remind everybody, California now has nearly $10 billion in reserves. About $8.5 billion of that is the rainy day fund, and $1.5 billion of that would be contingency included within the last adopted budget. On health care, obviously a lot of tension between California and D.C. I think the most material impact, and obviously a lot of folks in the Central Valley do get health care through the exchange and through Medi-Cal, is that the exchange actually expected significant increases going forward, and they built that into their models, and so folks are able to still get those benefits through the exchange. So still looking back in 2017, it really was an eventful year. It just was. We had a transportation package that was largely contained in Senate Bill 1. We had the Oroville spillway crisis. We had a cap and trade reauthorization by a 2/3 supermajority vote. We had the expenditure plan for the fiscal year. I want to remind the board and the public that some of the monies in cap and trade are continuously appropriated. Some of them are not. And so that carousel comes back around every year, at least for the time being. A lot of money in there that is good for the county. We need to keep it that way. We had a 15-bill package on housing in the state of California that included a housing bond that will be on the November ballot. It also included an ongoing funding source for housing in California. That was in Senate Bill 2 by Senator Atkins. Homelessness was brought up earlier. I want to make sure the board and the public know that really SB 2 has sort of 2 different funding schemes. And what I mean by that is in 2018, SB 2 is really a bill to address homelessness in California. There's money for planning for cities and counties, and there's also money for homelessness programs. Starting in 2019, SB 2 sort of converts to more of a program that'll help low and medium income home buyers get into their homes. And so there really is, it's one bill for 1 year, and then it really changes into something pretty different. Senate Bill 54, that's the so-called Sanctuary State Bill by Senator Pro Tem Kevin De Leon. If you've been reading the papers, you've probably noticed that there may be a referendum on that legislation, and that has gone to title and summary and through the Secretary of State, and will be going to the Attorney General's office for the referendum. And then the fires. I don't have to tell you about the fires, but I think the reason we need to look back sometimes is to look forward, and I just think the county should expect a ton of fire-related legislation in 2018. So still looking back a little bit, CSAC did me a favor here of talking about really the first two bills. I'm happy to say the governor did veto SB 649. That was really, at the end of the day, local government versus the giant telecom companies nationwide. Senate Bill 252, that is a bill that will impact this county. It impacts groundwater. Although the governor did sign the bill, which is unfortunate, I am happy to say that the bill that the governor signed is dramatically different than the bill that was introduced. We fought it till the end. CSAC and RCRC had sort of done their thing, if you will, getting amendments on the bill, and at that point, it went down to the governor. But it is a significantly different bill than it was when it was introduced and when the board met with Senator Dodd. So going back even a little bit further in the Wayback Machine, and the reason I want to do this is just very quickly because these things are really starting to play out. The 3-day in-print rule, we don't have gut and amends in the legislature anymore. Bills have to be in print pursuant to an initiative adopted by the voters in California a couple of years ago. That really is changing the game in Sacramento significantly. It's helping us, frankly. It's helping people that lobby for local governments just lobby better, frankly. It gives us more time. On Proposition 57, that's the Sentencing Reform Initiative. There's going to be a new initiative, and basically what that's going to do, it's being sponsored by the California retailers and a lot of crime victims groups, law enforcement groups. What that initiative is going to do is basically change some of what used to be felonies that were converted to misdemeanors back to felonies. And in one specific instance that the retailers are citing, apparently folks are, when they're shoplifting, they're actually moving through stores with calculators, making sure that they don't shoplift more than $950. And so that's one of the things that's going to be proposed to change here. I'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second, but I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's what the California Retailers Association says is true.
That's what I do when I go to Costco.
Just to be
but not
clear,
for that
just to be
reason.
clear. But if I have a matrix of pending initiatives, possible initiatives in 2018, and this is the God's honest truth. I got it from a friend on Thursday, and it's already out of date based on some of the activities Friday and yesterday and looks like today. So we're just going to have a lot of initiatives, it looks like, again, because we are here in California. Cannabis, recreational cannabis becomes legal January 1st, 2018. Again, I don't have to tell this board, but that is going to change the rules significantly throughout the state. So I want to conclude here by walking through some of the county's 2017 state legislative priorities. And the numbers there on the left are the way they're numbered in the county's legislative program. Not touching on all of them, but some of the more significant developments. Issue 1 in the platform was get money for methane reduction. That did happen in the cap and trade bill. Issue number 2 was get money to combat citrus diseases. That did happen in a bill by Senator Galgiani, Senate Bill 243. Issue number 3 was get money to better manage forests. There is $225 million in this year's cap and trade spending plan for that. Item 6 was private well assistance. There are several bills that got to the governor, and I'll give those to the board specifically, but just generally for this presentation, I want to make sure the board knows and the public that several bills actually got to the governor on that issue. Issue 7 was sustainable funding streams for water and sewer. Senator Hertzberg ran a bill, SB 231. Governor signed that. That does clarify some of the, rules surrounding how Proposition 218 works in California. Issue number 14 is obviously surface water and Temperance Flat. Happy to assist the JPA with that. We've done some really good work on that, and very hopeful about how much money Temperance will ultimately get. Hundreds of million, I think, is safe to say. But the actual amount at this point, I don't think we can say. But we've done some really good work there. On item 15, there are 3 bills that are what we call 2-year bills. They didn't happen in 2017. They're going to roll over to 2018. The reason I put it up there, it's not that something really happened on the Williamson Act as much as those bills started to engender a conversation with the administration about potentially using some cap and trade money for the Williamson Act. And I don't want to give anybody false hopes, but the cap and trade regime has now includes sort of mitigation for things, as well as I'll say its original intent. Some things are being funded out of cap and trade that maybe some of us didn't foresee originally, and I just say, what the heck? Let's go after some Williamson Act money. And I do want to make sure the board knows that we've had that conversation initially with the administration, and they haven't told us no. So we're going to see what we can do in 2018 on that. Issue 16 is the state payment in lieu of taxes. That was in the budget again this year. Unfortunately, Senator McGuire's SB 58 stalled. Issue 19 was the IHSS maintenance effort, which we've already talked about. And item 24 is the comprehensive transportation package, SB 1, which we've already talked about. So a fairly, not just eventful, but hopefully the board will agree, a fairly successful year. I will run through this, if it's okay with the board, very, very quickly, but and hopefully this engenders some questions. But we are going into midterm elections, governor's race, a little bit more probably exciting U.S. Senate race with Senator De Leon announcing that he's going to run the 2/3 legislative supermajority. Just want to remind everybody we're in a non-presidential election year. The legislature the Democrats have succeeded in attaining the supermajority in a presidential election year. Non-presidential years haven't been so good for them, and so that was obviously very important in 2017. We may see that go away after the 2018 elections. Our pro tem, Senator De Leon, who I've mentioned already, is termed out. There is a battle to succeed him as pro tem in this new era of term limits. That's really important because the leaders remain leaders a lot longer than they used to. I mentioned that we've got a new proposed initiative almost every day. And then just looking ahead to some other bills that maybe CSAC didn't touch on, we are going to have bail reform to deal with. Senator Lara's so-called single-payer bill is out of the House of Origin. It's out of the Senate. It's in the Assembly. Gubernatorial candidates are starting to take positions on that bill and on the issue. As that race goes forward, AB 2015 or 1250 we've talked about. This will be Jerry Brown's last and 16th year as governor of the state of California. Really extraordinary. And then the state, through the first quarter of this fiscal year, is $600 million ahead of estimate. So that would seem to bode well going into the next budget. Thank you for enduring that. If you'd given me just a little Snickers, I probably would have cut it short. But you know, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
We want to make you earn every penny that we pay you. Anybody have any questions or comments from the board? Supervisor Crocker.
Paul, can you talk about 623 and our efforts and what that looks like going into next year?
Senate Bill 623 by Senator Monning is a bill that would create a funding source, but from 3 different sources to help parts of the state deal with the nitrate problem in California, really sponsored by the Western Growers Association. That bill wasn't really gutted and amended. I think it's more accurate to say it was fleshed out later in the year. It is in the second house. I think that's the most important thing. It did not get to the governor. The votes, it's a Senate bill that's in the Assembly, and it started to look like the votes weren't there yet on the Assembly floor. And so Senator Monning decided to make it a 2-year bill and not try to push it at the end of the year. Obviously critically important for this county, for the nitrate problem. We've got time to move it in the Assembly. We've got all the way until the end of June under the legislative guidelines and rules. And we're just going to work with the Western growers and others best we can to get it through the Assembly. They are in our same building, on our same floor. And so that's made coordinating with the Western growers very, very easy for our firm. And we're just going to see what we can do, Supervisor. Yep.
Questions, comments, Supervisor Ward?
Just a kind of a comment, but the one thing I wanted to point out about the cap and trade bill is that through the Air District, there's an expectation that could be as much as $120 million. Is that right, Paul? Will come to the valley this year, and some of that, of course, will have opportunities to benefit Tulare County. There's money for digesters for dairies, trains. There's just a lot of potential there, and I've encouraged our departments, whenever they're looking at acquiring new equipment and so forth, to be sure and check with the Air District, for funding that may help us to cover some of those costs, because they're looking to try to get money back into local agencies, and these are significant dollars. And of course, the goal is to improve our air quality, but at the same time, when we have to replace equipment, it's a way also to help to leverage some of that expense. So I know, Paul, you've been engaged with that, as you also represent the Air District, and so that's a significant funding source, I think, for the valley.
Mayor, through the chair, that's so true. I got invited by Merced County to present at the San Joaquin Valley Supervisors Association. I said, a lot happened this year. There's a lot of money out there. What about a session on where's the money? Just to be colloquial, pardon me. But and so we're going to do that. And then the other thought, more specific than that, was let's invite Tom Jordan with the Air District to open that session up, because what you said is so true. There is that much money in cap and trade to clean the air in the Central Valley. And I just think it's important for Tom to walk all the Valley supervisors through, sort of pot by pot, all the money that's out there. And I would say for the public as well, like you said, Supervisor, if you're thinking about changing anything out, stationary or mobile, anytime soon, you should check in with the Air District, because money is going to flow for those purposes. So thank you.
So a couple. You want to have
I just want
an
to
opportunity? Go ahead.
Quick question.
Sure.
On this private well assistance, is there any number on that? How much money would be available, or total?
If I can get that to you, Supervisor, I don't want to throw out a bad number and get people more excited than maybe makes sense given the legislation. And I'll get you the numbers of the bills too.
Okay, that would be a low interest rate loan, right?
That's correct. There's also non-loan money. I mean, there's grant funding as well. But I'll follow up with the board on the specifics of that.
Thank you. I appreciate
Got
it.
it.
I've got a couple of questions for you, Paul. First of all, on SB 649, we talked about that bill, and you basically said that it was local government versus the telecom industry. How did our local delegation vote on that? I don't necessarily track those votes all the time. Do you have a general idea?
Gosh, Mr. Chairman. I will say we did about 1,000 or 100. We didn't have a perfect batting average on that in terms of where the delegation was on that bill.
So we had some of our delegation not advocating for local government.
I could tell you that they voted yes on the bill. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And then the next question that I have, we're all sitting here talking about all of this money that's being generated from cap and trade, from SB1. It's exciting when you're a local government applying for this grant money or receiving some of this. But would you just real quick, for members of the public that are listening, go over where this money comes from? Mm-hmm. So talk about some of these cost increases that are going to be hitting, I think, actually tomorrow to many of actually any California resident, because I think it's very important that while we understand that we're going to be getting a lot of money to improve infrastructure, that money comes from somewhere. And, Tulare County has a lot of disadvantaged residents everywhere in the valley, and even in the state has a lot of disadvantaged low-income residents this is really going to affect. There's no, when you go to the gas pump and fill up, there's no checking of how much money you have in your bank account or how much you have each month to live on. So this is going to have a tremendous impact on the lowest income California residents, and I think it's important for everyone to know exactly what that's going to look like.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So the more immediate impact, as you noted, is going to starts tomorrow, and that is gas taxes in the state of California will go up. The estimate is 12 cents a gallon. That is a result of Senate Bill 1, which, as I mentioned earlier, contains almost all of the transportation deal that was cut in the legislature middle of spring. So gas taxes are expected to go up by 12 cents. I should mention that, as folks may have just reading the paper may know, I talked about one referendum potentially earlier. There may also be a referendum on Senate Bill 1 on the November ballot. And there's not one but two groups that are talking about gathering the signatures and potentially, asking the voters to repeal the gas tax hike. But in the meantime, that hike will occur. We've actually researched the issue, and I can tell you, this is important, that the tax will sort of be the law of the land until it isn't. If that referendum is successful, if it gets on the ballot, if the voters vote for it, whatever taxes are collected in the meantime will flow to cities and counties and to the California Transportation Commission. There is no clawback provision on that, is what we always call it when a situation like that arises, a clawback. So that's Senate Bill 1 and where those monies will come from. I believe the county is estimated to get about $15 million a year, and the cities in Tulare County are also estimated, I think, to get about $10 million a year. So it's about $25 million, and I may have that. I'm happy to be corrected if someone behind me can do that, but I believe it's about $25 million total. That's not even counting the money that would go through the California Transportation Commission for highways, as Supervisor Ennis mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of money, but the voters may say, nope, we don't want that. So that's Senate Bill 1. On cap and trade, we've had cap and trade for a while. It was initially enacted by a simple majority vote in the legislature, and some taxpayer groups contended that it should have been approved with a 2/3 supermajority vote, and they were challenging it in court. So it became very important for Governor Brown because, among other things, the high-speed rail is funded out of cap and trade. So it became very important for Governor Brown to get it reenacted with that 2/3 supermajority vote. The way cap and trade works is companies go to the California Air Resources Board and through an auction process basically pay to maintain their current levels of operation. And in paying and sort of participating in the auction, it creates this pool of money that then can go to other things that clean the air in the state of California. When there was legal uncertainty about cap and trade, these auctions weren't performing very well. The minute the legislature reapproved cap and trade with the 2/3 supermajority vote, the auction thereafter sort of went gangbusters and worked the way it was always sort of expected to work. And hundreds of millions of dollars in auction credits were sold. And so every time there's an auction and every time those funds are raised, then they're then funds that the legislature and the governor can appropriate. So I tried to explain both those, spend an equal amount of time on both of them, Mr. Chairman, and I'm happy to take a follow-up question.
Yeah, and I just, I think it's important just for members of the public. I mean, I know that there was a registration fee component in SB 1. There's a gas tax hike component. There's a diesel tax hike component. All of these things are costs that are paid by everyday Californians.
Mr. Chairman, on top of that, if I might interject.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
When you talk about cap and trade, talk about the corporations that are buying these credits, corporations only have to pass on their expenses to consumers. Absolutely. So in the end, everybody still pays for everything. I mean, the consumers do, because corporations only have money because of people buying their products, since they have to raise the cost of products in order to maintain their profit ratios, which are very small. Most corporations operate at about a 6% profit margin. So it's not like they're sitting there on top of gazillions of dollars that they can just parcel out themselves. Ultimately, the consumers pay for it. So we pay the taxes, we pay for the products, for the regulatory costs, and it all falls back on the people. It's good that you bring that out, because oftentimes we do get caught up in thinking about, well, what we can do with this money, and our job is always to be efficient and use the water money wisely as we're given the authority to do so. But it does come back to who pays for it.
And I just really wanted to make sure that was highlighted. I think it's a very important thing that we often forget, and it's easily forgotten where the laws are passed up in Sacramento, and we live amongst the day-to-day constituents and hear these things. So,
Understood.
But any further questions or comments? Hey, thank you very much, Paul, for a great presentation, and always look forward to very detailed PowerPoints.
Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, too, I might just always, as I made the comment about CSAC, we have worked closely with Paul for a number of years, and Paul's very responsive. He's very well regarded in Sacramento, and I think we are well served by his services in Absolutely. Sacramento, and very much appreciate Paul's efforts. He's always been very responsive to us and our needs, and thanks, Paul.
Thank you for allowing me to represent this great county.
Great job, Paul. Appreciate your comments. All right, now we are going to move on to item number 4 on our agenda, and this is a public comment period. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not on today's agenda, but under the board's purview. Public comment can and will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anybody here wishing to speak under public comment? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public comment period, and I will bring it back to the board. Before we take up our 9:30 timed item, I do want to take up the consent calendar quickly. Item number 7, I'm going to just comment on that and just make sure that we acknowledge and congratulate our sheriff of Tulare County for being recognized by the Boy Scouts of America for a Distinguished Citizen Award. I think that's a tremendous achievement and shows your impact well beyond the confines of county walls in your department. So thank you for that impact, Sheriff. We will be pulling item number 18 for correction. Item number 21 will be considered separately by the board as I will be recusing myself. And then that is all I have on the consent calendar. Any additional items for correction or comment by the board or members of the public?
Move for approval of balance of consent.
I have a motion by Supervisor Ennis, a second by Supervisor Worthley. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We will now go back, take up item 18. Jason?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just Jason Britt, HHSA Director. Real quickly, we're just seeking here to clarify and authorize the authorized agents of this grant. The advanced application was submitted with Mr. Tim Lutz as an authorized agent back in January. Of course, he left county service in April. So we'd like to just have authorization to change that to myself, Jason Britt, HHSA Director. So.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, with that correction, we have a motion to approve by Supervisor Worthley, second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move on to item 21. On item 21, I'm going to be recusing myself. This is the cancellation of a Williamson Act contract for a piece of property owned by my mom's husband and herself, so I am not going to partake in this action.
Move for approval.
Second.
Right, you want to wait?
We have a second? Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. Vote passes unanimously 4-0. Supervisor Vanderpool not abstaining, not participating.
Thank you, Supervisor Worthley, for covering for me briefly. We will now go back to the 9:30 timed item. Chuckling, don't make me laugh. Item 5 is a public hearing, a request from the Resource Management Agency to consider the request for the cancellation of land conservation contract number 8104 on agricultural preserve number 2710, 17.8 acres on one parcel owned by the O'Sullivan Family Trust. Another long sentence.
Thank you, Chairman, board members, CEO, and County Council. Mike Washam, RMA Associate Director. Today for your consideration is a Williamson Act contract cancellation, number 16005. The request is to cancel contract number 8104. Applicants is the Sullivan Family Trust, and the property owners are Thomas and Deborah O'Sullivan. We make determination of Williamson Act findings of consistency, which I'll go through quickly on the next couple slides, and determine and certify the cancellation fee amount in the amount of $32,250, which is equal to 12.5% of the current market fair market value as determined by our county auditor. This is a locational map. You can see the site there just on the west side of the Bryant-Kern Canal. Please note that we do have a compass there. A couple presentations ago, there was a mention of east-west, so I have my chief planner now. I promised that he'd get a compass, and now we've included that within this. As you can see, there's a lot of rural residential around the area. So the 5 findings is that has there already been a notice of non-renewal been served on this property? And yes, there has been for the full 17.88 acres. Will the cancellation not likely result in removal of adjacent lands from agricultural use? There's really no change that's being proposed for this. The existing agricultural use will continue. There's no land division, designation, land use designation change or change of zone whatsoever. In fact, they just recently planted an orchard there. So applicant has their own options of what to do. We recommended just do the non-renewal process and save some money, but wanted to move forward on it, so we'll process at their request. But there's nothing being proposed at this time, so they're going to continue farming on it. Next one is the cancellation for an alternative use, which is consistent with the applicable provisions of the city or county general plan. Again, there's no change being proposed. However, at 17.8 acres, it is substantially less than the 40-acre parcel size for non-prime farmland. So it is consistent with General Plan Policy AG 1.5 in that we're removing parcels that are of sizes not meeting those minimum requirements. So it is consistent with that as well. The cancellation will not result in discontinuous patterns of urban development. It's, as you saw in that aerial photo, it's pretty much surrounded by small rural residential already, so it's really not going to change that. And again, the existing use is not being proposed to change. And there's no proximate non-contracted land which is both available and suitable for the proposed use or development. Again, there's no change, there's no development being proposed, and even if there was, this is the only land that this person owns in that general area, so it's consistent with those findings. So with that, I just request that you hold a public hearing and then approve the cancellation pursuant to your agenda packet.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from board members?
Well, you answered mine. I just can't understand why, if they're going to continue to farm it, why they didn't just let it run out instead of sending this money to the state of California, since they don't subvent anymore. So,
Supervisor Crocker.
Yeah, that was kind of on my line. So just for clarification purposes, we're having a public hearing because it's a cancellation. If it was a non-renewal, then we would have it as a normal course of business.
Correct. The cancellation requires the fee to the state, and it requires a public hearing.
Okay. Any additional questions? This is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing and ask for public comment. Is there any public comment related to this item? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to make the motion, but I did, just again, as to reiterate, this is, it always pains me to approve these, not because of the desires of the property owner, but the fact that we're sending $32,000 to the state of California, $32,250 to the state of California for absolutely nothing. When they were subventing, it made sense. They are not subventing. It makes no sense. We take it in the shorts for taking a reduction in property taxes, and then the benefit goes back to the state of California. So.
Shorts or pants?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to the untimed portion of our meeting and take up item number 25. This is a request from the Health and Human Services Agency to approve the acceptance of funds from the California Department of Public Health California Tobacco Control Program for the fiscal year 2018 in an amount not to exceed $748,627. Karen, you can start whenever you'd like. I know this is your first presentation, but feel free to cut me off. This is a long sentence.
You bet. Thank you very much, Chairman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Board, CEO Spada, Council Peterson. I'm here today to discuss the Tulare County Tobacco Control Program. We are going to be receiving and requesting some acceptance of funds and also requesting addition of some staff. So I'm going to begin by educating everybody about the program itself. In 1988, the state of California had 24% of adult smokers, despite a lot of warnings and studies on the hazards of tobacco, and the voters chose to bring Proposition 99, Tobacco Tax and Health Protection Act of 1988, which was successfully voted in, and it was a 25-cent cigarette tax on a pack of cigarettes and other tobacco products, which included cigars, chewing tobacco, pipe tobacco, and snuff. These funds were to be used for health education, healthcare services, and research. So the program here in Tulare County started, and we, for the last at least 15 years, have received an annual program funding of around $150,000 each year. And the objectives from this was to reduce the storefront signage in certain convenience stores, increase the coalition engagement. So a coalition was for Tulare, or tobacco was formed, and increase the number of tobacco-free multi-unit housing complexes. This has been an ongoing projects within the program, and it is achieved primarily with 2 FTEs, primarily a health education specialist and a health education assistant. In 2016, the voters chose to bring forward Proposition 56, which is the California Healthcare Research and Prevention Tobacco Tax. This increased the tax on all of the items I discussed by $2 per pack or item, and it also changed the definition of other tobacco products. In both Proposition 99 and there is a Proposition 10 that taxes tobacco. E-cigarettes, electronic cigarettes was not covered. This changed so that that is now covered also. With this new funding, which began April 2017, we began the $2 tax. I think the e-cigarette comes into effect in January 2018. The California Department of Public Health sent out a new funding level for a 4-year program cycle. We increased from the $150,000 that we received through the Prop 99 to $748,000, so we about quadrupled the amount of funding that the program receives. And obviously, when you receive that much more money, they also have other objectives that they want you to reach. So the new objectives is they have, which our staff has now began working on. We are to track the Prop 99 and Prop 56 funding separately. And we have, let's see here, some of the initiatives that we're going to be working on is to work with a minimum of 1 jurisdiction in Tulare County to adopt and implement a tobacco retailer license policy that earmarks a portion of the license fee for enforcement activities. We are to work towards a minimum of 1 community college or vocational school in Tulare County, which will adopt and implement a policy that prohibits the use of all tobacco products. And we will also work to identify, recruit, and maintain at least 5 new diverse and non-traditional partners to participate in the Tobacco Control Coalition. And some of the things that will be moving forward is some of these activities. We'll coordinate and prepare educational meetings, participate and coordinate the Tobacco Control Coalition, increase the number of tobacco-free areas, and educate stakeholders and communities on the risks of tobacco. With this, another thing that came as a requirement in the new scope of work for these funds is that we are to dedicate one full-time person, which is designated as a project coordinator, and 1 full-time person, which is designated as a community engagement coordinator. The program coordinator will maintain contact with the state consultant. They'll organize the scope of work. We'll work with internal and external evaluators. They'll ensure all objectives are on track and fit well to the community. They'll prepare and justify any project plan revisions or budget adjustments. The community engagement coordinator will serve as the liaison and facilitator to the coalition and priority populations. They'll increase the diversity within the coalition, which not just racially and culturally, but also programmatics to include businesses and local leaders within the coalition. They'll increase the adult engagement, and they will also increase and expand the media process. I am here to request 2 additional staff for this project. With the money, they can definitely be covered. There is a 4-year agreement cycle. It does decrease through the years, but that is based on the fact that they feel that through this project, the number of smokers and percent of people smoking will decrease, and also we'll have initiated a lot of the projects, and so will receive a little bit less money. But anything in the first few years, if we do not spend it, does have the opportunity to roll over. Recognizing again, anytime you get money from the state or any other source, that there There's never a guarantee that past an agreement or even within the cycle that you'll continue to receive the funding. So we will work as an agency again. If for whatever reason the funding is reduced or taken away, we will either keep any of the programs, or the positions vacant, or find other ways within the agency that there would be no net county cost for the county based on us adding these positions now. And here are just some of the statistics I wanted to share with you in terms of seeing how we compare to California and where we stand now. I want to also say that hopefully some of this educated you a little bit more about the tobacco program. The nice thing about anytime you come forward to present to the board, that I learn a little bit about my programs. You kind of know the sky high view of it, but you don't understand everything they do. And I'm really happy to say that we have some really bright people who work within that program who are really energetic and enthusiastic, and they're here today. They're the ones who provided me this information. I just didn't have it, but very, very proud of that program and what they do. And I have a list of requests that now I'd like to give to you and ask if you have any questions.
Real quick, just a quick comment. If you don't mind going back to that slide where you profile our youth population. Actually, it's all population. If you look at our adult population that consumes tobacco or smokes, we are above California average, but if you look at our high schoolers, specifically 11th graders, we've got students, 14% of our students, compared to the average of 18.5%. I think that shows that our Red Ribbon Week, our anti-tobacco efforts in Tulare County and our school system have been quite successful and have had an impact on the general population of students. Hopefully that will then decrease the trend of adults that are smoking as these children age and get into the adult population. But there still is a lot of work that needs to be done, and so it's great to have a great team in Tulare County like we do that's full of energy and is really excited about getting this message out there, because it is very important for public health and for the overall health of our general populace. So I wanted to make that point too. Supervisor Worthley?
Yeah, Karen, I was curious. I know that some years ago the state had pulled the funding from schools for Red Ribbon Week. So as I understand it, the vestiges of that program have really been carried on by the school districts on their own initiative, and they don't really have funding to provide for it. Will some of these funds be made available for that purpose of public schools and their Red Ribbon efforts?
I don't know if it's specifically for Red Ribbon, and I can ask come on up, Kate. This is Kate Bourne, and she is our health education specialist, one of our bright, energetic staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. Again, my name is Kate Bourne. I'm the health education specialist with the California Tobacco Control Program here in Tulare County. With regards to the funds that go to schools, they also receive their own separate portion of the Prop 99 funds under the 2B grants. So they are able to use those funds for their current Red Ribbon Weeks, and they will also see an increase in funding from Prop 56 as well.
All right. I appreciate our staff. Again, this funds is made available to us. We're trying to be good stewards of the funds that are given to us. I just struggle with this kind of a program because, to me, it's just punishment of smokers. They just want to collect more tax revenue. They want to make it more expensive so more people will quit smoking, and I think it's probably a fairly effective approach. But, I remember last year we had an effort made to try to stop smoking in our public parks. And already, every school I know is a tobacco-free school. So it's like there's less and less places where people can smoke. And so, it's like, is a goal of this group then to get it so there's, 1 square meter in Tulare County where people can smoke cigarettes and no place else? It's like, where does this end? There's already so much money already being spent. There's so much education. We've all known about the dangers of tobacco since 1960. And it's like, this is the kind of thing that the state of California does that drives me crazy. I realize this was an initiative, but there's real problems in this country that need to be worked on. We're not building anything with this. We're not, someone will say, well, if we save one child, I get that logic, but it just seems like it's a redundancy of so much stuff that's already going on. it's just troublesome to me that this is the kind of thing that comes forward when we have serious issues that we need to be dealing with in our county and our state.
Being Halloween, does the ghost of Al Nashida have any comments to make?
I have no problem with this program, but I think Supervisor Worthley brings up a good point. You know, the state of California isn't concerned about smoke from devastating forest fires, and that is a major concern, as well as, you know, we're only talking about tobacco, but, you know, wacky tobacco has some other smoke issues as well that we're not concerned about. So, but I have no issue with this.
And wacky tobacco, you referring to marijuana?
Maybe a little hippie lettuce, you know.
Maybe.
Whatever.
So you are a little younger than I, so I just want to make sure I get my terminology correct.
It would be good to see the statistics on marijuana
Yeah.
in the coming years of how many kids in school are using it.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to have the green target on its back right now. Supervisor Struckling.
I think it's a good program. I think anytime that we can keep our youth, especially, you know, there was that one slide that showed there was a lower average among 11th graders using tobacco, but I noticed that there was a higher average with them using e-cigarettes. So I think right now the e-cigarette business is probably targeting them more. And I'm going to bring up something really popular right now. On my notes, I said, what about a no smoking policy on county property? That's something I would like to see. Currently, I think it's like 20 feet from a building, but if you walk out of Government Plaza one day and somebody's smoking, it just wafts right into your face and everybody else's. So I would like to see us, you know, take the lead on doing a no smoking policy on county property. That would include parks.
I tried last year with parks. It didn't work.
Well, let's try again. There's new faces and maybe some new thinking. So that's what I would like to see.
Yes, and my program would be happy to assist with any technical assistance with regards to any smoke-free policy. And just in regards to your comments, Supervisor Worthley, it is a continuing issue. It is a public health issue. We have 1 in 5 deaths are in California are from tobacco-related diseases. So it is a continuing issue despite the long-term education, as you can see by the statistics.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I understand that. And to me, it's about personal choice. I mean, anybody who smokes today knows that they do so at their own peril. I think that's my point. And unless you're just going to make it illegal, which we don't seem to be, we're going the opposite direction with that, then all this effort just seems to be, it's just a, you know, you think about use of money. I was very upset about the idea of taking recording of documents and using that money to fund affordable housing. It makes a lot more sense in my mind to use these funds for affordable housing than it does to take recording fees. It's just as connected to the problem as recording fees. There's no connection with recording fees to housing problems. A lot of times we find cigarette smokers it's a regressive tax. People who really can't afford to buy food, buy cigarettes, and they keep buying cigarettes. So it's one of those strange phenomena, but it's just one of those things that irks me, again, in terms of government, and its never-ending quest to control every second of our lives. But thank you.
Well, I'd love to have this discussion later on.
I'm not upset with you all. I mean, you guys are doing, I think, an excellent job with the program.
We recognize that.
It's just the overall, the genesis of this thing that bothers me.
What is the percentage of the?
If I just may, Mr. Chairman, you know, the Prop 56. I mean, that we have not only Sacramento, but I mean the state of California decided on that. So we need to look to our neighbors.
Okay. Karen, do you have any other comments?
Okay. I was just saying, and of those taxes, 10% of it is what comes to education, others for healthcare, for the resulting disparities based on the tobacco use also. So it's not just for the education, but point taken, I understand what you're saying. But no, I would like to request.
All right, we do have a number of requests in front of us. I will entertain a motion at this time. I have a motion from, actually, is there any public comment related to this before we finish our votes? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion from Supervisor Ennis, second by Supervisor Struckling. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we're going to move from talking about smoke to talking about trash. We have a request to receive a report from the Solid Waste Department on the franchise agreement from the Thule Trash Company to the American Refuse for Franchise Area G. Council, I know this is set for closed session. Would you like to adjourn to closed session before?
We will after the presentation.
Or we want to wait off the
and after
presentation?
public comment.
Okay, sounds good.
Bryce Howard, Director of Solid Waste. Good morning. So what we have before you is Thule Trash has a franchise agreement with us, Franchise Area G, and they've decided to sell that franchise or sell their company, but for our concerns, the franchise to American Refuse. We've been going through about 6 months of review with them. We hired a consultant to look at that review. We went back and forth on different pieces of information. The consultant put out a fairly extensive laundry list of items that they'd looked at. When we presented that to the two companies, we looked at an abbreviated list. And I felt like that abbreviated list, if they covered all those areas, in which the consultant says they did, and the consultant actually says in that abbreviated list of items, they are above the industry standards in performance and any other financial metric. So the non-abbreviated list, which is a couple of items I want to point out, is just, audited financial statements from both companies were not presented. So the consultant feels like maybe we should do those as well. But based on my review of the consultant's work and review of the two companies, I'm in a place where I'm agreeing with the assignment of Area G from Thule Trash to American Refuse. That's what's before us.
Okay, any questions from board members? Is there any public comment at this time?
I will point out that Richard Gress is in the audience with us today if he wants to make any comments, but I think it's a fairly straightforward matter.
Okay. Richard, any comments? Okay. Any additional questions or comments from board members? Council, I do know that we have this set for closed session. Would you like to adjourn
We'd like to adjourn into closed session.
Okay, the board will adjourn to closed session and return momentarily.
But it's not like can we say transaction?
Okay, the board is back in session. I will look to council to bring up some of the legal issues that they are concerned with on behalf of the board and the county.
Council would like to suggest amendment.
I don't know if that's on.
Hello there? Yes. Council would like to suggest making amendment to the second request that currently says direct staff to approve the assignment. In its place, we'd like to add that the Board of Supervisors consent to the purchase transaction of Thule Trash, one of the county's solid waste franchisees, by American Refuse, subject to the following conditions. 1. Payment of the assignment review fee and costs specified in Section 15.7D of the franchise agreement or actual costs incurred in the assignment. 2. Payment of the transfer fee specified in Section 15.7E of the franchise agreement, if applicable. 3. Compliance by Thule Trash, American Refuse, or the combined entity as applicable with all requirements of the current franchise agreement, Tulare County Agreement Number 27187. 4. Proof of American Refuse's or any combined entity's express agreement to all terms, duties, and obligations outlined in Tulare County Agreement Number 27187, including all duties to indemnify the county. And 5. American Refuse's and Thule Trash's express agreement to execute all documents or undertake any further action to ensure that these conditions are met. And also, Council recommends adding a third request that would be the Board of Supervisors finds that consenting to this purchase or transfer of control of Thule Trash meets the interests of the public health, safety, and general welfare of the county.
Thank you for reading that in, Council. I'm sure glad I didn't have to remember all of that. Given that, is there any public comment related to those items? I'd like to give Thule Trash or American an opportunity if they would like. You showed up in uniform today, Jeff. That's great.
I wasn't really prepared. I found out kind of in a short amount of time. Jeff Martin, American Refuse, 1316 J Street, Wasco, California. Not having the contract in front of me, I don't have time to really read through it and argue any points or anything. Not that I would have an argument if I knew and understand everything completely. But this has been a long process. I think we've been working on this close to 8 months now, trying to comply with everything possible. American Refuse, you know, I've owned American Refuse for quite some time, and I've also been involved in it my entire life. You know, we have an outstanding record, a stellar record, in everything that we do. County, and we look forward to coming up here and working with you guys as well. So,
okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? Supervisor Worthley?
Well, no, I mean, I was ready to make a motion.
Okay.
All
Right.
right.
Any additional public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board for action.
One thing I just wanted to point out is that I know that you have not seen these conditions beforehand, but they are tied into the original contract as far as transfer fees and the cost and so forth. So unless you have objected to that, we're going to go ahead and move forward today with the motion to approve.
Subject to an agreement.
Subject to the conditions that we just were outlined. So that's my motion.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Crocker. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and good luck. And if I get any constituent complaints regarding refuse, I will send them to Thule Trash just to welcome you and save you a little bit, Jeff. All right. Thank you very much for that item. We'll now move on to item number 27, which is a request to receive a report from the Solid Waste Department regarding material management of construction and demolition debris at the county landfills. Busy day for you, Bryce.
Bryce Howard, Director of Solid Waste. Just one item before we get started. One of the previous presentations was about money available through the Air District. And thanks to Steve's efforts, we were able to contact the Air District. Normally when we sell a piece of equipment, we sell it back. When we buy a new piece of equipment, for this piece of equipment was about $750,000. The vendor that we're buying it from gives us $30,000 in trade-in, basically, scrap fee. But the Air Board looks like they're going to give us about $150,000. And so that's another $120,000 that we didn't have budgeted this year. It's a nice little bump for us. And thank you, Steve, for letting us know about that. That worked out really well.
Thank you.
So it was nice of the Air District to be able to put that up in front of us. So during our budget review process, some questions came up about the C&D program. And so I wanted to spend some time talking about where we've been, where we're going a little bit, and to give you a chance to ask any more questions or comments or even give us some direction on where you think it might go in the future. So the C&D program started off back quite a while ago to try and comply with AB 939. There was a 50% goal in this county, so we started a C&D program to help us try and recycle 50% of the debris. The county now is up above 70%, so that's not really necessary. The amount of C&D that we recycle at our landfills, even if we didn't recycle any of it, that 70% wouldn't drop much. It's a very small percentage of our overall volume. We do about 400,000 tons a year of trash into our landfills at Tulare County. The C&D program takes in about 20,000, or about 5%. So even if you did away with the program entirely, you'd go from 72, 73% diversion down to about 68% diversion, which is still better than the 50% mandate. The state has a goal to do about 75%, but right now it's just a goal. The state overall is having a hard time making that number. What's a little bit more important is in 2006, but more recently, there was a green business code passed by Cal Recycle that says that municipalities need to try and find a way to have construction demolition recycled at 50%, but then in 2017 that moved to 65%. So when you go to get a permit to do a building in your community or do a remodel, that entity has to have you sign off where are you going to get the 65% diversion from. Now you can do it in a variety of different places. The way we've done it at our landfills is we've offered that program. Basically you can bring it to us. We'll certify that you brought it to us. We'll certify that you got your 65%. You can take that back to your building department, and then we'll sign off and give you your permit. So that's why we sort of have the program today. As you can see, the program's had two basic vendors over the last 10 years plus, Carts and Peñas. There's our diversion history. When the program first started out, we were diverting about 55%. Then it moved to 75. The 63% that we see in 2014, 2016 is probably going to go up because we haven't received some of the material from Peñas that we've probably are going to get real shortly here. So that number is probably going to be closer to 75% as well. Parts came in with a new program, a different system, a different way of looking at this material, and they were able to do 92%. Now, I think that number is actually more like 90%, but still, it's a phenomenal number. But by and large, the 2016, 2017 number, all of that material, almost all of that material ends up in our landfills. What we've done is we've taken the trash or the C&D product and we've turned it into a cover material. It still ends up in our landfill, where the prior programs, that material did not end up in our landfill. It ended up in burn plants, or cardboard got recycled somewhere, or the plastic, but the commodities markets have fallen apart. So CARTS came up with a new program. They worked with our local enforcement agency, our inspectors, and said, can we grind this material up to make it into an ADC product? They were successful at doing that, and we were able to recycle over 90%. This is probably I would say our most important slide in this presentation is where our costs have gone. So you can see when the program back in 2008 got started, we were around $1.2 million. And we're processing relatively the same amount of material here. It's not like it's jumped around a whole bunch. It's between 20 and 25,000 tons to keep year to year. You can see in 2011, we're up around $1.7 million. We were changing contracts in here and getting language. We got a little smarter about how we initiated these contracts back in 2013, but as we know, that particular vendor, Peñas Disposal, had a rough time making that work at those prices. So we were sitting around that $900,000 mark for a number of years, and you can see that last year, Parts was able to come in at $800,000, a significant reduction, I believe. Yep. So then what we did is we took a look at, let me go back up for a minute. So carts came in around $800,000, 20,000 tons, about $40 a ton or so. Their actual contract price is around $43, so we process a little less than 20,000 tons. Like we were talking about during the budget hearing process, we looked at that $43 and we said, so we're going to need to raise rates because we're charging our customers $39. What can we do better? So we worked with the vendor to see if they could get something better, and they did. They got back actually down to that $39 number. But to get that $39 number, what they needed was a 7-year agreement, which we were uncomfortable with, and they needed a cost increase escalator price in there of some sort. This was all sort of verbal communication. This wasn't a formal bidding process. We didn't go out to look at other vendors. Their agreement allowed for several extensions, and to do those extensions would have required that price to be at $43. For us to go to $43 a ton from the 39 gate, we would have to come to you and ask for a $4 or so increase. And I was reluctant to come to this board and ask for that price increase. So I challenged our staff to try and find another way. We spent a lot of time working through this process. We came up with basically using the CART system, not inventing something new, but using something that they had developed, buying the exact same piece of equipment they had, using the exact, basically same amount of personnel. We came up with a total program cost of $640,000, which instead of that $800,000 number we saw, we'd be down around $640,000. Part of that number in there, which is not included in the $800,000 you saw previously, is that last bullet item there for $220,000. That's an airspace consumption that we put in for our internal costs, which means when we put this material in for ADC, it's still consuming airspace, which means we still have to build a new cell, and we still have to close that space. And those are fixed costs no matter what we do. That's about $220,000. So our overall program, we believe, if we're going to charge the program as sort of a separate business entity outside of the landfilling business, would be $640,000. If we take a look at that exact same program, we pull out the capital of $80,000 a year, and if we pull out the post-closure cost of $220,000, the actual cash out of pocket is now down to about $340,000. But we have to remember, we're spending $800,000 to buy a machine to make this work. So we feel that that's a good use of our funds and a good use of our capital. And I guess, do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments about this? Supervisor Crocker?
I don't have any new comments. I think the comments were made budget. I just philosophically think that if there are private sector entities that are interested in doing business and that we have good partners, whether it's carts or piñas, or if Thule Trash decides to get into C&D, then that's where we should go first. We should go to the private sector prior to creating more government, bigger government.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Well, just a comment about how the whole lay of the land has changed dramatically, because when you think about recyclables, I don't think most people in California think about recyclables being put back in the landfills, right? They're thinking about plastic that's getting gone back out and then coming back, and I'm drinking another plastic that's been recycled. They're thinking about recycled glass. They're thinking about stuff that comes back into the public from a commodity standpoint. I have no problem with this, because we know what happened was the price of commodities went into the toilet, and that's what created the big problem. The business model for these folks was they were charging us for providing a service, and then they were selling these products on the market, and combined it made for a business plan that was successful. When all of a sudden the price of the commodities dropped to nothing, virtually, except for maybe aluminum, and a few other things, that didn't work anymore. So that's why this whole thing changed I think it's ingenious, really, a way of taking advantage of using this material and recycling it in a different format, a different way than what the public would normally think. But, so I have no problem with it whatsoever. I understand the comment by my fellow supervisor here. In this case, I think the goal is always to try to provide the service to the public at the most cost-effective way, and I think that's what you've demonstrated here. I guess the question I would have had is, was this something that our previous vendor had some sort of contractual, what do you call it? They had held a patent or something on it. So we've basically taken their idea and appropriated it for ourselves. Apparently, we're not violating any rules, or we probably would have heard about it. But in that sense, the fact that we can do something more cost-effective in-house. We did the same thing with our IT system years ago. We used to contract out for IT. We found it cheaper to bring it in-house, and that's what we've done for the last decade or more. So I think this is just more of the same. Whenever we can do something less expensively with our own folks, then we should be doing that. If we can do it less expensively with somebody who's outside, then we should do that. So anyway, I have no problem with what the end result here is that the public is not going to have to pay more money to bring their material to our landfills.
So I think in general, we've been fortunate in the solid waste department to have an increasing volume or a good economy to work with. And so we haven't had to raise prices over the last 3 or 4 years. I don't see that we're going to need to do that in the near future. But certainly if the economy changes and there's less volume coming into our landfills, there's fixed costs that have to be paid for, and that's going to change the dynamic. And I think that private sector certainly plays a part in all this. We have contractors who are picking up our trash for us. We're not like the city of Visalia where they do it in-house. And I also think it's our staff's goal to continue to look at what happens if private sector did more things on our landfill. There's Kern County has private sector operating their landfills. Maybe not operating the gate where they collect the money, but the actual operation. I think any of that, it's open. If we come to you at any point in time and say we're going to raise prices, I expect to be pushed very hard on where can we reduce costs.
And I just want to add that I do think Supervisor Worthley made a very good point, because at the end of the day, it is about keeping the costs down for members of the public that are using our landfills. And by us internalizing this process and going through this, we were able to keep that cost down, because at the end of the day, the cost gets passed on to the consumer. And so I think that this is a good opportunity to keep those costs down for our county residents and folks using our landfills. Any additional public comments? I'm sorry, board comments or public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Motion approved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes 4-1 with Supervisor Crocker voting against. We will now move on to take up item number 28, which is a request from Board of Supervisors staff to send a letter of support for immigration path to citizenship.
Good morning, Board, CAO, Council, and Clerk. I bring you a brief discussion this morning. As you may recall, a few weeks back, We received a request from members of the public regarding concerns expressed in their communities in regards to immigration issues that are currently being addressed at the federal level. Locally here, we look at these issues and we consider what may or may not affect residents in Tulare County. For your review today is a drafted letter addressed to our Tulare County delegation, asking them to consider these issues and the effect it may have in Tulare County when addressing these topics at their level in the federal government. In your packets was included a drafted letter for your review. It was also made public online, and today we ask you to review this letter and 1, consider any changes you deem necessary. 2, if you'd like the content of the letter and agreement, pass a motion to send this to our delegation. So today I look for any thoughts or concerns or comments you may have on what was drafted and submitted to you.
I have a few items that I wanted to go over just real quick that are technical, specifically about the letter. I wanted to make sure that the letter is addressed to the entire Tulare County delegation, not just copied to our United States senators. Those 2 senators also represent Tulare County, and I want the letter addressed to them too. Congressman Valadeo's name is misspelled. I'd like that corrected. I also would like to change at the beginning of the second paragraph. I would like it to say, "as you know." I think our congressional delegation is very familiar with Tulare County's agricultural prominence, and so I think that we can add that there. And then at the very end, I would like to change where it says feel free to contact our office. I'd like them to contact us because I think this is something that any one of us would be willing to discuss with them. Given that, any other questions or comments? And I just want to say one more thing before I give up the microphone to Supervisor Shuckling. This is an item specifically advocating for immigration reform, is an item that this Board of Supervisors has had on our federal lobbying platform for many years. It was not on here this year, but this is something that this board has worked on in the past, so this is not a new request. This is something we have done, and this is just another letter that is going to bring it forward to 2017 and reprioritize it for this board. Supervisor Shuckling?
Juliana, do we have any idea what the number that may be affected in Tulare County by what's going on?
I do not have a specific number. What I've looked at is stats from the offices out of Fresno and Los Angeles, and it shows a lot of application numbers from people who are trying to become permanent residents. However, that shows applicants, they could apply this year, not be granted this year. It could take 2-3 years. It shows what's rejected. It shows people in the process, but it doesn't really tailor it where I can see how many are within this county, how many have applied and were either completely rejected or went back or still in the process. I know it can be lengthy and it's a case by case. So I haven't had access to an actual number of, where it is in Tulare County in the Central Valley. We're looking at thousands of people, spans throughout the years. I just don't know what the timeline would be. It depends on each individual and their specific case and how these offices deem that they're eligible for this.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from board members?
No, but the important thing of this whole is citizenship.
Agree.
Becoming citizens, not just waving a magic wand and say, okay, you're all set, you can stay here. Become United States citizens. That's the important issue.
Supervisor Crocker?
I'd just like to add an edit as well. Paul Yoder's name listed as CC'd, and I think we need to have our federal lobbyist, David Wetmore, on there as opposed to Paul. Paul's a great guy, but I don't know that would be concerned about this necessarily.
Actually, he should be a substitution.
Yeah, substitution, yeah. Excuse me. Other than that, I think that it's important for our agriculture industry that the letter states that, and I don't think anything more needs to be added.
Okay, great. I will now open up for public comment. Is there anybody here wishing to speak to the board under public comment? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, board. My name is Abigail Solis. I am the school board president of the Early March School District Board of Trustees. 785 East Center Avenue in Early Mart, California. I want to thank you for taking up this item this morning, and I appreciate that you have followed up on our original request a few weeks ago to do so. I know that many of you by now know that this is not a partisan issue. This is truly a humanitarian issue. As you will see that our representation in Sacramento and in Washington, we've seen support on both sides of the aisle. So this issue is very important here locally in Tulare County. As you all know, we mentioned before that at Early Mart, we have already, in many of our small communities, we are already starting to see that we're losing some of our average daily attendance. So our students are starting to leave our school districts. I can only imagine what would happen if the DACA program ended and additional families had to leave our communities, because not one student would leave alone. He'd leave with him or her would leave with their entire family, which would mean that they would have to vacate their home. They would no longer work at their place of employment, and they would no longer attend our schools. This would affect us dramatically if this happened throughout Tulare County. In terms of the DACA recipients here in not only in Tulare County but just across the country, you will see that 91% of those are employed. 25 and over, 93% are employed. And on average, 8% have started their own business, compared to the country as a whole, 3.1% start their own business. So really, this demographic is actually doing better in terms of starting their own business and really contributing to the economy here in our country. I think that this issue really is something that this board needs to join in on with the rest of not only cities and counties across the state of California who have really stepped up to protect this demographic of our population. So in terms of my community and the people that I represent in Early Mart, we would urge this board to consider sending this letter, not only in support of DACA, but encouraging our elected officials to support a true pathway to citizenship, as mentioned before, because that is truly the ultimate goal. These families, they work hard here every single day, not only in our farms, but in other places of business. And many of our young people, our undocumented young people here in Tulare County, they were brought here at no fault of their own. They are trying to go to school, get an education, get a college degree, and work and come back and work and add to the economy. So I would urge you to strongly consider supporting this letter and sending it out to make it clear that Tulare County stands with the rest of the state in support of this very important population. Thank you.
Any additional public comments? I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion and or action.
Mr. Chair, before you take a motion, I just wanted to comment something that was said by the speaker. You know, there are many reasons that go into why things happen as far as people moving. But one of the greatest, I think, impact for our local industry that we're already seeing in the transition, and the reason why people are moving away from labor-intensive type of agriculture to much less so, is the cost of labor itself. And minimum wage will have a huge impact as we approach the $15 per hour rate. Is going to have as much or a bigger problem, I think, in terms of finding labor, because people can't afford to pay it. And there will be more and more planting of almonds and pistachios and nut crops and so forth, and away from tree fruit and the traditional types of products that we grow under that require a lot of hand labor. But I mean, I support this letter, but I'm just saying it's not the only reason we may see people leaving our communities, because I've talked to a dairyman the other day. He's in a white area. He may be affected by the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. In fact, he most probably will be. And his business plan, as he's looking forward, is quitting his dairy business and growing nut crops. And he'll go from 42 employees to 2. So these are the things that happen. There are other dynamics that affect labor. And certainly I support, like I said, I support this concept, but we need to understand there are many dynamics that affect agriculture. So anyway, with that, I would move to approve the letter.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Shuckling. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We're now going to move on to item number 29 on our agenda, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to approve an amendment to Agreement 27554 with the Allen Law Firm, Inc., and the Law Office of Marcus Turigian to increase the overall compensation of the agreement by $1.1 million for a total of $10,435,597.42, effective July 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. The matter before you is a proposed amendment number 3 to an agreement with our conflict defender, the Allen Law Firm, and their substitute, the Torrigan Law Firm. All right, next slide, please. Essentially, the need for this amendment is that there is an increased cost of defense by outside attorneys for the Red Soul case. Briefly, the Red Soul case was a major gang-related arrest and prosecution by our law enforcement and prosecution authorities in Tulare County recently. There were over 80 defendants that were the subject of this action, and as a result, the predecessor to the current conflict defender had retained an extensive number of outside attorneys to represent the defendants. Since the onset of the agreement with the successor, the Allen Law Firm, there has been a conscientious effort to take a look at the costs generated by the outside attorneys, and the Allen Law Firm has transferred a number of cases by reassigning them from outside attorneys to conflict defender attorneys, which fall within the scope of the agreement and also the costs that have been assessed within the agreement. Although the conflict defender, Mr. Allen, is here today, and Mr. Chairman, with your permission, he would like to make a brief comment, but let me just summarize that since the original approval of this agreement in March of 2016 by this board, there were a total number of 51 outside attorneys. Through the administration of Mr. Allen, that number has been reduced from 51 to 7. The estimated cost savings as a result of the reassignment of cases from outside attorneys to conflict agreement attorneys has been approximately $850,000. Nonetheless, we did ask Mr. Allen to still project the likely future costs, even though it's an estimate, to project what the future costs would be under this agreement for the Red Soul case, and that is almost $1 million. Consequently, the proposed amendment to the agreement is requested to be an increase of $1.1 million added to the compensation for attorneys because of the Red Soul case. To give you just a brief amount of agreement history, on March 29th, 2016, this board adopted the original agreement of approximately $8.3 million. Amendment number 1 was approved on November 1st, 2016 in the amount of $700,000 for the Red Soul case. Amendment number 2, approved by the board on April 4th, 2017 in the amount of $300,000 for the Red Soul case. And amendment number 3, which is proposed today, of $1.1 million. The total amount of the contract would now increase to $10.4 million from the original $8.3, which is a total increase of $2.1 million. With that, Mr. Chairman, the requested action is to approve amendment number 3, to authorize the chairman to sign 3 copies of the amendment, and to approve a budget adjustment by a 4/5 vote in the amount of $1.480,300,000. $1.1 million of that amount would be for the proposed increase of the Red Soul case, and the balance of $380,000 would be a budget transfer for the existing amount for the remainder of the year for the administration of the contract. That concludes my presentation. Any comments or questions?
I was hoping this money was going to come from HHSA, but that being said, I guess it's not. Anybody have any additional questions or
Well,
comments?
one further comment I was going to make. You might wonder why, having gone to so few attorneys, is still so much money. We're now at the point we're dealing with the actual homicide cases. And I'm not mistaken, and that's one reason why the costs are so great, the capital cases that we're dealing with. Is that correct?
That is correct, Supervisor Worthy. We're down.
Please identify
Sure.
yourself.
My name is David Allen. I'm your conflict attorney. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be here today to update the board as it relates to the Red Soul case. As Mr. Spot had indicated, we are now down to about 7 outside attorneys. We're down to that number for a variety of ways. Some are from their clients pleading out. Others is because they have gotten out, and I have reassigned them to what I call our in-house attorneys. We're down to 7 outside attorneys, and some of those are pending preliminary hearing. I've been able to reassign 2 cases that are seeking the death penalty against the individuals to our in-house counsel. That way, that has saved the county a tremendous amount of money. Unfortunately, we have, at the end of November, there's going to be 3 preliminary hearings in which 2 out of those 3 are going to be facing the death penalty. We won't know until after the first of the year whether or not the district attorney's office is going to proceed death against those 2 individuals or not. One of those is an outside attorney who my predecessor has assigned to represent this individual. He's not death qualified. So I'm going to be bringing that case in-house as well. And the second individual is I have brought him on as one of our conflict attorneys. And unfortunately, he's not death qualified. So I will be reassigning that case as well to our in-house counsel. So what I'm trying to do is do my very best in trying to control the cost as much as possible. Mr. Yoder stood up and he briefly talked about Prop 57, and he made a comment about how individuals are going through grocery stores or convenience stores with calculators. I can say that is absolutely true. I have seen police reports where these individuals are arrested with calculators. Unfortunately, there's a second part of Prop 57, and that is the district attorney's office used to be able to direct file as adults against juveniles. Well, we have 2 of the Red Soul defendants that are juveniles, and they're currently going through the juvenile process to determine whether or not they are fit for juvenile court or they should be tried as an adult. Unfortunately, because of that, we are seeing a slight increase in some of the cost that is associated with representing these individuals. Believe it or not, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We are slowly seeing it, and I'm hopeful that the 7 cases that we are now paying the outside attorneys, I'm hoping this time next year I'm going to be able to stand in front of you and say that all of the outside attorneys are no longer being involved in the Red Soul case. And the only ones that will be remaining are our in-house attorneys, because realistically, as we all know, in death penalty cases, it takes a number of years from the time that this case gets started to go to a jury trial. I'm estimating the $1.1 million, or excuse me, I'm estimating the $980,000 because these cases are realistically, they're going to go to trial. They're facing homicide. They're facing conspiracy to commit murders. And so they're looking at life crimes. And so realistically, those types of cases will be going to trial. Since I took over about a year and a half ago, just on the Red Soul case, I've paid out a little over $1 million to these outside attorneys. And I'm hoping to alleviate additional cost to the county by bringing all of this stuff in-house and in where we can alleviate some of these outside costs. We do have ancillary services for our in-house attorneys, and those ancillary services are for investigation costs, for paralegals, for copying, and those types of things. By bringing in some of these these cases in-house, it's kind of increasing our ancillary services expenditures somewhat, and I'm trying to convince my attorneys to only use investigations when, as absolutely necessary, and try to control some of our ancillary services costs. And I've been getting very receptive from the attorneys to try to control our expenses as much as possible, because this case is very, very expensive. I mean, we have seen that from the get-go, and as the slideshow shows how much I have unfortunately had to come in and ask the board for additional funding. When I took over, there was an excess of $300,000 just in unpaid invoices that I inherited, and so I had to come to the board and say, please give me some additional funds so I can pay this and so we can continue to provide competent representation to the individuals that were pending charges. If there's any questions or comments, I'll be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Just a comment. I would just thank you, Mr. Allen, for containing costs as much as possible. It's pretty unbelievable to me that we're seeing the total tunnel that we're beginning to see the light at the end of at a cost of $10,435,000. It's astronomical, but to think that these individuals that have been committing these crimes in our community are going through the process of being held accountable. There is a cost to that, but I'm sure glad to pay these costs when our streets are safer. So not really a comment that maybe you're wanting to hear as you're defending these individuals, but this is a very significant cost.
And just for the $10 million, that's for the whole entire contract.
Yeah.
Just not the Red Soul case.
Just it's a long tunnel.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a big dollar figure, and I understand that.
Any additional comments, Supervisor Crocker?
The anticipated additional $1 million. Do we know when we may see that additional dollar amount come before us? Is this fiscal year or next?
It is conceivable. It's a function of the extent of the representation by outside counsel and the submittal of their invoices. So I asked counsel to give us a best estimate based upon the nature and severity of the crimes and what, based upon his understanding, would be of an estimate. So we wanted to give the board an idea of what we're looking at in the future, but practically and technically speaking, it's a function when they submit the bills to Mr. Allen.
Yes, I have a question as far as fiscal impact. It says there's no net county cost because it's coming from the miscellaneous administration budget. What would that have gone towards had it not gone towards this?
That's a good question. Let me respond technically in terms of the budget. The $1 million essentially was proposed as part of the recommended budget because we have great cooperation and interaction with Mr. Allen, so we knew this was coming.
Okay.
So in terms of being proactive, we proposed this in the recommended budget, and it was explained during the budget hearings that this would be coming. So the miscellaneous admin is a holding pattern account, if you will, for those things that we know are coming during the course of the fiscal year but need to be approved as part of the adopted budget. Now, the second part of your question is, what would it be used for other purposes? Yes, the board has a number of purposes for which that funding could be utilized, but given the need to provide the constitutional defense as well as effective administration, that's why we went forward. And you may recall, one of the policy reasons for an effective defense is that if an appellate court reversed the conviction, we have to go all over again, which could be repayment of the same amount of costs.
Thanks.
What is a prudent budget savings to try to say, well, let's ensure that the accused are given competent representation so that we can try to reduce the degree to which we have to do it again.
Any additional questions or comments?
Well, the only thing I'd say, Mr. Chairman, is that this comes under the rubric of you pointed it out, this is public safety.
Yeah.
And sometimes we tend to think public safety is just the sheriff's operation, or it's just the district attorney's office, or it's just the public. I mean, it's the whole gamut. And this is, when you look at the amount of our county budget which is expended for public safety, it is a huge expenditure. And I don't say that just from a negative standpoint. I think the public needs to understand we do treat this as a very high priority in Tulare County, and it's evidenced by when you look at our budgetary expenditures.
Absolutely.
Motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion from Supervisor. Any public comment before we approve this? Seeing no public
I'll
comment, I have
second
a
that.
motion from Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes our untimed portion of our
David did show his age, Mr. Chairman, when he called it a slide, because that's the kind of comment I would make.
And you should probably change your binder from yellow to red, since it is the red soul case, just saying.
That is so true, but you can thank my staff for this.
Soul is sun, so it's
Red
yellow
soul.
like the sun.
There you go.
Pero este sol es
That's all I know.
rojo. All right. Council, do we have need for closed session?
We do, Mr. Chairman. Item A was on calendar related to item 5, was not needed and is off calendar. Items B and C were heard already in closed session in relationship to item 26. Item E is off calendar. So items D and F will be heard on the regular agenda, and items G through H will be heard on the addendum. I do not anticipate any announcements out.
Okay, that was a nice long report, Council. Thank you for that. We will now adjourn to closed session. Thank you all for attending, and safe trick-or-treating tonight. Happy Halloween. Board is adjourned.